Hey, looks like I'm live. One sec. Hey. Hi, everyone. Can you see me? Hey, everyone. Okay. Day three. Today is one of the most important days. Today we'll be wrapping things up, putting a nice little bow tie on top, and set you guys forth on your journey. Right. Do we have people coming in? We do. Hi, Bishal. Hi, Gayatri. Okay. Let's wait just a couple more minutes for more people to join in. And once they do, we'll start with our day today. In the meantime, while people are joining, I will go ahead and set up my development environment. I've done this countless times. I'm doing this again right in front of you. This is the terminal that I'm using. Yeah, let more people join in. I will go on and set up my development environment in the meantime. Guys, go on and mark your attendance on Let's Upgrade. Yeah, go on and mark your attendance. I will go on and type new dev, which is my development folder. HTML5 class, let's upgrade. Yeah, so I'm doing this so that more people can join. In the meantime, I'm just setting up my development environment. Guys, if you're here, say hello in the chat, like Bishal did, like uh, Gayatri did, and Shacha. I'm sorry, I'm not able to pronounce your name properly. Hey, Vaibhav. Hola. Okay. Let's make it bigger. Guys, let me know if it's comfortable to read. Let me know in the chat if it's comfortable to read. And since I've reached here, I'm gonna go ahead and open my development environment. This is where we were the last time we were here. Dharmendra, how to download certificate? Don't worry, there's this. Go to Let's Upgrade and register yourself, and uh, they'll help you sort this out, Dharmendra. Don't worry. So this is what we had done the last time we were here. And as I keep telling you, Chad, the most important part of this class is not me teaching this, is you guys actually implementing it. So to that effect, have you guys gone on and implemented any of this? Have you guys written some code? I'm gonna go ahead and go live and drag the window here, make it larger. Great, everyone can see this, right? It's easily legible. Okay, I think there are some people here already. Okay, so I've set up my development environment. Let's talk about what we have done the last 2 days and what we will cover today. In the last 2 days, the day one was me just getting you guys started with HTML, getting the basics there, just setting everything up, setting up the development environment, uh, using VS Code and giving you just the basics of how to create a web page using some of the extensions that I use for myself. Right. Day two was building on that foundation, that is essentially accepting user input, right? Letting the user send some data back to the server, and so that server can do some processing with it. Unfortunately, working with servers is not part of the curriculum for you right now, so we'll just stick to creating the front end. And I think I showed you an example as well, wherein I was running my own server and capturing the data that we were sending from the front end. We spoke about SEO semantics, semantic tags, why they are required, and what will we do like essentially the significance of semantic tags in accessibility, in SEO rankings. That was day 2. Day 3, and the how what we're going to do on day 3 is we're going to wrap this up in a very nice bow, as in this looks like this right now. And the idea is that I will, by the end of the day, you will be making it look like an actual good website with colors of your choice and things falling in place. So the layout of the website, CSS parts of it. We'll also discuss a few other important form elements. Like I got you started first. Now let's build on that. And yeah, I'll get you started on some other important form elements and HTML5 APIs, like the geolocation API, like the drag and drop API. And at the same time, I would like to add that uh, HTML5 and the tags that we have are so vast that even if you do 5 tags a day, right, you are not going to be able to finish HTML in, I think, even 10 days, because there are really so many tags. I barely think you'll be able to finish everything in even a month. Point that I'm trying to make is the idea for this stream is that you guys practice everything on your own. My job is to get you started, give you the resources so that you are able to solve this on your own. And if you have any questions, any problems, you can always reach out to me through Let's Upgrade and through Twitter. Okay. Mumin, this one's live. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to read your message. Does that make sense? Hey, Mumin. Okay. Now that we are here, let's begin. Day 3. Let's talk about. Okay, before we even do that, I told you about a few other tags that we were using here. Something like this. I'd like to talk about the significance of these tags. This is meta tag is pretty self-explanatory. It is just giving it a description that it can use to populate the fields in browser. Right. This one. What does this one do? Any ideas, anyone? What do you think this one does? Take a wild guess. Anyone, take a wild guess. Same here, man. Hi. So yeah, without wasting a lot of time, I will go on and tell you myself what this one does. Essentially, like I keep using the poster analogy, right? And it is actually a very apt analogy because uh, what you see on the web page is essentially the poster that we have created. It is not necessarily the size of your screen or your monitor, because obviously your screen sizes on which you are viewing the front end can always change. You can view it on a very large screen like I have. You can view it on a laptop screen like it is there. You can view it on a phone, right? So the screen size can change, and the poster size has to adjust accordingly. The canvas size has to adjust accordingly. This, what it does is, this is just telling the browser, wherever you're rendering it, it is just telling the browser that adopt the size of the screen wherever you're viewing it. That's essentially all it does. Hey, it's a very nice name, Beauties Help. But yeah, glad to have you here. And okay, so this is what we did the last time we were here. Now, how about let's start with, so the curriculum says that I have to talk to you about Flexbox, but a very important part before we even go to Flexbox is CSS. And CSS simply stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Okay. And I really love showing things visually. If you have noticed anything in the last two sessions, it is that I love showing things visually. I was thinking about collecting some memes about HTML and CSS, but you know, didn't get a time. Let's do this right now. So CSS, HTML, memes. Essentially, I'm trying to through uh, show you through visualization how that helps, what CSS is. So CSS is okay. Before we go into the memes, CSS is essentially the coat of paint that we put on raw tags and raw data that we have put on the HTML. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is, if your face is the HTML, CSS is the makeup. It just makes the HTML that you have rendered. It makes it look good. You can provide colors to it. You can provide sizes to it. You can provide directions to it, where to put what, how does the content flow on the page. That is all made possible with CSS or cascading style sheets. Why cascading? Can anyone have an idea? I'll tell you anyway. So cascading, because there's a priority list set in how you define CSS, and it cascades all the way through to the from the parent element to the child element. So cascading style sheets. Don't worry, all of this that I'm telling you right now about this is just for your knowledge. Nobody is gonna ask you why it's called cascading style sheets, but it's always good to know. In my almost 10 years now of experience, nobody has ever asked me what CSS means. But I thought I'll tell you. So with that knowledge, let's see a few CSS memes. Do you guys have a few CSS memes? Would you like sharing? Do you guys have any CSS memes? So CSS is very frequently called the toughest part of writing a front end. I don't believe that. I believe that it is vast. It is very, very vast. In fact, it is larger than HTML in scope, but it works. It operates on very simple, basic principles. So, with the same thing that I said at the beginning of the class, I will not be able to tell you everything there is about CSS, especially not in one day, especially not in one class. But I intend to give you all the resources that you guys are able to do it on your own, and you guys are able to solve it on your own, so that as and when you need it, you can reach out to Let's Upgrade at any time for help. Okay. Now let's incorporate CSS into it. The way we do it is, there are a couple of ways to incorporate CSS. One is inline. Inline is simply that you know, for example, this is body. I write a style tag here. We are giving it a styling. Okay. And I write background and give it some loud color so that it sticks out in your eyes. Let's do this. When I do this and go back to my page, you see how the entire body turned red. Like I said, with CSS, you can provide sizes, colors, where you put what. Okay, so I'll tell you about different screen sizes as well. Don't worry, and I'll also tell you about how to use CSS in different screen sizes as well. Please don't worry about it. But right now, I have to assume that everyone here is an absolute beginner. If you have some knowledge already, well and good. But I have to assume everyone is an absolute beginner, so I have to include everyone in the explanations that I make. Right. So three ways of writing CSS. One is inline, which is this. I'll write it up here. Inline, embedded in page, and linked or outside. What you just saw as an example was the example of inline that I showed you, right? So it is style background red. Everyone here? Right. Uh, okay. So as I was saying, the first way is inline. Now, please don't worry about styling this page just yet. Right now, I'm trying to show only that you can add CSS this way. We'll add a lot more styles. We'll make this website look somewhat better by the end of it. But right now, I'm just showing you how to do this. Okay. The first way is inline. Just you can essentially add the style attribute to any tag and give it some style properties. I usually use background because that's the easiest property to demonstrate. Let's take it out of here. Let's put it in header. And now the header will have a red background. There we go. And let's give h4 a blue background. Okay. If you do this, you see it like this. Let's put an embedded CSS or internal CSS, right? You do that by opening and closing another tag. I usually put it before I, essentially everything that is not rendered, I put it inside the head. So let's go here. The tag is called style tag. Okay. And now I can target tags that I want to color. So for example, I want to target H2 tag. Now I want to give it yellow color or some other color. I can simply write in here H2. Okay. Then I can open and close a pair of curly braces and I can give my styling inside it. So I can write same thing as I wrote before, background color, yellow. Press save, go back and let's see. This is an example of embedded CSS. Makes sense? I'm also periodically checking if you guys are leaving any comments. Please do. It's fun to solve comments in real time. And the third way of doing CSS is essentially what you'll see 99% of the time of how CSS is written, which is a linked or external CSS. Because the idea of computer science is that everything it's essentially a single responsibility principle. So one file should do only one thing. This file is responsible for putting all the HTML elements in page. This file should also not be responsible for styling the page, for which we go here. Now in the same root folder that I have, I create another file. I call it style.css, with CSS being the extension, right? And I write some CSS tags here, just like I did when I was writing internal CSS or embedded CSS. So now let's say I've colored H2, I've colored H4, I've colored the header. I want to color H5 and H6. Okay. What I'll do is I'll write H5 and I will give it a background color of beige. Similarly with H6, I will give it a background color of, how about let's go yeah, blanched almond. Now, before I show you the website, I have to tell you right now that these colors will not apply yet. Why? Because we have actually not linked the CSS. The HTML does not know that this CSS file exists, but I have to show you anyway. Just to show you the difference later. That right now there will be no colors applied because the HTML5 does not know, the HTML file does not know that the styles exist. We can do that by going here and simply linking it below my styles tag. So I can do a link tag and CSS. It autofills everything for me. If you've noticed, it's given it href of style.css. This is Now, this is a very important point. This style.css is not because I wrote here style.css. As a matter of fact, it's the other way around. It's the convention that when you're writing styles for an HTML page, you call it style.css. So this line that Emmet has autofilled for me is just following the convention. And I know already that it's going to be called style.css, which is why I named this file style.css. Now, to demonstrate this point, I'm going to change this name. I'm going to call it style S by Sarthak and go here and give it the same name, styles by sarthak.css. Okay. Now, if I go back to the page, hopefully the colors will be applied. They are. Thankfully, they are. Anywho. Okay. Any more comments, guys? It's fun to solve comments. Please keep them coming in. Please keep them pouring in. Right. There is a bunch of things that I've just glossed over. In the interest of keeping this video short, I will tell you what I glossed over so that you can go and do your research on your own. It's not that hard, and I feel that it would be dragging the class down if I keep explaining each and every single little thing. I will tell you about it. I will tell you how it works, but I will depend on you guys to do your research and come back and ask for questions if you have any. Number one, I've if you've noticed that I just start writing something, like again, if I start writing link, it auto suggests everything to me, right? This is because of Emmet. Emmet is an extension that comes pre-built with VS Code. This was why in the first class I insisted everyone use VS Code, because there's a lot of interesting useful packages that comes pre-installed. That's number one. Number two, when we this is going to be covered later, but when I go about organizing my code, I don't put all the files here. I put them in their designated folders, right? Now, when that happens, you're also now talking about linking essentially relative paths. Relative paths. What do you mean by relative paths? I simply mean that how do you reach this file? How does href know that when I write styles by sarthak.css, it means this? It's not that intuitive. It's in fact counterintuitive. What I'm trying to say is, if I put a root folder here called styles, and I transfer this file inside. Now, for the intelligent people among you, which I know all of you are, this styles will right now not apply. Okay, I will show you how they apply. See, those styles have gone from H5 and H6. To make them appear again, I write here styles styles, the folder, and then styles by Sarthak. Again, my ID is helping me a lot by auto suggesting. So this is why I use this IDE, and this is why you should use this IDE too. Now I'm going through styles and then styles by sarthak.css. This is more research that I need from you. This is what I've done right now. It's called absolute styling. I've started from the root of the project directory. I've given an absolute path which will always resolve to this file. There's one more thing which is called essentially relative linking. Relative linking starts from the file that you're calling it from. So if I'm calling from index, I think it will be the same thing. The path will be the same, but essentially I want to uh, let you know that relative linking also exists. Again, if you have questions, let them come. It will be very interesting to solve them. Okay. Now, when I've done this, I go back, the colors are back. In fact, yeah, interesting. That's what we wanted. Now, let's go back and talk about. Now, let's actually come to the part that I wanted to talk to you about, which is Flexbox, which is layout, the actual reason why we are doing this class today. Because we can color we can color all the different tags. What about how to arrange them? Okay. So for example, this H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. What if I want to have five boxes? Okay. I want to arrange them side by side, and I want them to have consistent styling. What I mean by consistent styling is I want all of them to look similar. Okay. One way of doing that and going about that is inside the body above the footer I write this, and I make those boxes. Now I'm making a div because I told you in the first class div is nothing but a logical division. I'm creating a logical division here marked by this div, and I will create my boxes inside again using div. Mm-mm. Okay. Div 1, div 2, div 3, div 4. Let's have div 1, div 2, div 3, and div 4. Okay, now let's see how are they rendering on the page. They should simply render like this. I want them to be squares. Okay, so first of all, let me give them a class. I'll talk about this, show you first, then explain what I mean. As a matter of fact, let me make them again so that it's easier for me to give them a class. Div dot. What class name should I give? Let's call it HT. No, very generic. It's a very particular name. Let's give it a very more generic name. Oh, what do I call it? Let's just call it test one. Test one. Let's make four of these. Okay. Let's call it div one, div two, div three, div four. Okay. Class. Every one of them has gone the test one class. What does this indicate? I'll just show you. Give me a minute. Now I can target that class. How do I target that class? By giving it a dot notation. Dot test one. And now I can style them. Style them how? By giving them a height of how many pixels? Give them 100 pixels. Yeah, 100 pixels high and 100 pixels wide. Let's give all of them a color of background color of beige. I kind of like beige. And let's give them a border of 2 pixel. Let's make it black. Let's make it solid. If I do this, then I've got four boxes which look like this. There is a lot of things happening right now. I will explain everything to you. Just give me a minute. Let me show you first what I mean. Okay. Now let me also give it a margin, bottom and top. Okay. So the bottom and top margin, or in fact the margin all over, should be, let's say, 5 px, 5 px, not 4 px. Once I do that, you see that the divs are a little more separated. Now, what if I want to stack the div from left to right? There are ways of going about it. Okay. Div, by its very nature, it's a block level element. What does a block level element mean? I told you in, I think, in the first class, block level element take the entire width of the viewport. Okay. Beauty's help. What is relative linking? I'll just take a minute. I'll come back to it. But I was explaining something right now. So block level element take the entire width of the viewport available. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is, look at this div one. Div one has all of this blank space available. It will still not. It will still not let any other element have come here in this available space. What if we want it to? Okay, what if we want div1 and then div2 and then div3 and then div4 going from left to right? Block level element will not allow us to. Okay, which is why I gave it a logical division, because using Flexbox I can give it an ID of logical parent, go to the styles, target the parent div by hash logical parent, and give it a display of flex, display flex. If I do this, everything is now arranged neatly from left to right. Now comes the important part. What I mean that, you know, there's a bunch of things happening. First of all, if you've noticed, all of the divs which have which I want to provide the same value, I've given them an attribute of class. Notice here, and I've given them the same class name, which is test1. First of all, what does class mean? Class simply means that I'm trying to group a few tags by a common feature in here. Right now it being the common identifier being test1. Just like if I say I'm teaching the HTML5 let's upgrade class, I mean all of you. So class simply means that it's a collection of tags that we want to identify. Okay, uh, tags, many tags can share the same class, right? So like this tag, this tag, and this tag, they all share the same class, test1. But ID can only be one on the entire page. So if I have a logical parent here, I cannot go on and give this an ID of logical parent. And this is case sensitive, by the way. I actually can. CSS or HTML or browser will not complain, but that's bad practice. So it will not error out. There will not be an error, but that's bad practice. Similarly, like there can be uh, two people who share the same Aadhaar cards, right? For example, my name is Sarthak Batra. I have a very unique Aadhaar card. Now, there can be someone else who, by mistake shares the same name and is by mistake given the same Aadhaar card. So that can happen, and that the system allows it to exist, but that should not. That's bad practice. Aadhaar card and Aadhaar card is essentially ID. It should be uniquely identifiable. It should be used to uniquely identify any element in the page. So by convention, let's not call it the same thing. If I want to call something, I can call it something later. Uh, Anywho, so I've given this an ID of logical parent, and I've used style to target it. Another thing, if you've noticed, class can be targeted by using a dot notation. So if I want to target a class, any class for that matter, I can call it dot and test2. Okay, and I can go on and give this a class of test2. Test2. Now whatever style I write here will be applied to this element. Similarly, IDs are identified by hash. Okay, using a hash logical parent. There's more to it. It's called there's CSS selectors. Essentially, there's more to it. There's more to this explanation, but again, it's outside the scope of our curriculum today, and I encourage you to read that on your own and come back with questions. Okay, so test2, let's not uh, use it right now, and let me get rid of it here as well. Now I can quickly go back and ask, solve this. What is relative linking? Relative linking is, trying to find the file that you've mentioned from the current file. What I mean by this is, let me make a relative linking pathway to show you. I've created a folder called SRC. SRC is usually a conventional folder for source. Source means all your important files go here. Okay, and I'm putting the index.html here. Immediately you'll notice a lot of my things will break. A lot of my assets will break. Why will they break? Because now, let me make this live again. Yeah, so a lot of my assets will, hold on. There we are. I'm getting the assets, but some of them are breaking. Okay. Anywho, the idea of me telling you that the assets will break, like for example, the inline and the embedded styles are applying, but the external style sheets, it's not linking. Why? Because now the address is not right. Why is the address not right? Because I've given the address of styles by Sarthak. This I told you was absolute linking. Absolute linking doesn't work in HTML. You have to do relative linking. What I mean by relative linking is my file that I'm calling it from is here, index.html, and the file that I want to call is here. I'll try to make a diagram somewhere so that I can explain it to you. Let's go to Excalidraw. Excalidraw. Let's make a huge big box. Let's make another box inside of it. We call it the src folder. One more box. Let's call the styles folder. Okay. Write some text here. src, and this is styles. Is everyone able to see everything? Read everything? Styles. Okay. Let me make this bigger for everyone's convenience. 1 second. I'm making the wrong file bigger. Hold on. Let's make this one bigger. Is everyone able to read and see everything now? Essentially, what's happening is I have an index file which is situated here. Okay. So what I'm doing is I am telling, I want to tell the, and by the way, this is the root directory. What I want to tell my file here, the index file, I want to tell him that you are in the src folder. I want you to first go outside to the root folder. From the root folder, you find a folder called styles, and from on inside the styles folder, you find a file called styles by sarthak.html. Sorry, .css. So this is essentially what I want to do. Styles by sarthak.css. This is what I want to do, and I want to achieve this by relative linking. So we do this by, now we can do this by how. So we are in this folder, index. How do I go up one level, or how do I go to the root? Because root has src folder. So src folder is inside the root folder. I want to go from inside the root folder, sorry, from inside the src folder to outside. Okay. How do I do that? I can simply do that by doing double dots slash. Now I'm in the root folder. Okay. I can write styles. This is now me going into the styles folder, and I can write styles by Sarthak. This is me relatively linking to the same CSS file from outside. Now, if I go back, my styles would have applied back. See, does it make sense? What is the use case of it? So, okay, Ekto, your name beauties help. It's funny. The use case of it is this, it is the default convention of how we link files, because abhi to right now the project is very rather small, right? The project can go on and grow to be very large, and this is a consistent way of targeting any file that you want at all times. Okay, so that's the use case. And let me link the monster as well. So how about monster? Now this will also break. So monster.mp4, let me relatively link this, and let me relatively link this as well. Monster.mp4, this should now work, and they are working as expected. Let me have a quick see. Oh yes, they're working. Anyway, give me a minute, guys. I'll just have some water. Dry throat. Okay, so we move on, and I'll try to pick up some pace right now. So we were talking about Flexbox. Okay, where are my Flexbox elements? Here they are. What I've done is I've given it a display of Flex. Uh, Normally, their display and their layouts are different. The default layout is, I think, static. Static is simply just it simply means uh, that the element appears in the flow of the document as it regularly should. That's all it means, right? By giving it a display of Flex, Flex is a special display that tells the browser that the children of the parent have to be arranged in a special manner. They have to be stacked one after the other. Now the stacking can go from left to right, which is like this. In fact, this is the default, and you have the option to change it. How? By going inside the parent. We are still in the parent. We give it a flex direction. So the default direction is row, which we are doing right now. So if I give it row, nothing will change. Div 1 is here, div 2 is still here, div 3 is still here, div 4 is still here. But so the corollary of row should be column. When I do column, now they will stack from top to bottom as it was stacking in static. When I do this, they stack top to bottom, div 1, div 2, div 3, div 3, div 4. Importantly enough, now if you go and look at them over inspect element, their boxes, their box models are now much smaller. I'll show you what I mean. If I take away the flex property here, let me comment it out for a minute. Now, if I go here and refresh this page and go down, you will notice that when I hover over div 4, the entire right side of the page will be marked as yellow. What I mean by that is this. See, do you see a very small line going here? Hold on. Do you guys see a very small line that is marking the, how it is? Hold on. Let me comment everything out. Let's see. Let me refresh. Yeah, so there's a very fine line that is running through here. I don't know if it's visible in your screens, but you'll have to take my word for it. Okay, Momin, I will do that. I will definitely do that. I will go over them again. Okay. Anyway, so by giving it a display of flex, we can give it a flex direction of column. It will stack them top to bottom. We also have two more ways of stacking them. Left to right and top to bottom are not the only ones. You can also stack them right to left and bottom to top. I'll show you what I mean. If I the default is left to right, which is row, I can give it a direction property of row reverse. Now they will stack from right to left. See, div 1 is now on the right, followed by div 2, followed by div 3, and div 4. Okay. I can also stack them from bottom to top, which can be achieved by doing this. Column, reverse. Now they are stacking from bottom to top. Div 1 is now on the bottom. Div 2 is on top of div 1, followed by div 3 and div 4, and so on and so forth. Okay. Just these two properties are very powerful. You can arrange almost any, almost any web page using these two properties. I'll give you two more important properties. Sometimes I feel these are what makes Flexbox so powerful. Let me give it a default direction of row so that I can show you what I mean. The parent, let us give the parent a background color of orange or aquamarine so that I can show you where the parent is. This is just for your visualization. Now the width and height of the children is 100. Let's make the parent. First of all, let me tell you about justify content. So when we are talking about Flexbox, we talk in terms of the main axis and the cross axis. Okay. So I just told you about how to stack them from left to right, which is the flex direction of row. So when we give a flex direction of row, they stack from left to right. How the jargon for it is, like how we say it in CSS, the technical term for it is that the main axis as in the axis of stacking, is left to right in flex direction of row. So the main axis is left to right. That is how we identify. Okay. If I do a row reverse, the main axis will be right to left. If we do a column, the main axis will be top to bottom. If we do a column reverse, the main axis will be bottom to top. Okay. Similarly, there's something called cross axis. Cross axis is 90-degree to main axis. As simple as that. Okay. So if the main axis is left to right, cross axis is top to bottom. Simple as that. That's all that you need to know. Do you guys understand? Let me know in the chat. This is important. I want you guys, if you're listening to me, I want you guys to let me know if you understand this. What is main axis and what is cross axis? Please, this is important, guys. Let me know. I'm waiting. Because only then this justify content and align items will make sense. If you don't understand, then none of this will make sense. And it will confuse you more. Great. I've got one yes. Does everyone else understand too? Anyway, so what justify content does, I'll show you. Justify content has these values, and they're essentially very self-explanatory. What they do is, thank you, Gayatri, Momin, Beauty's help for your vote of confidence. This is necessary for you guys to understand. Now, when I say main axis for this, I'll write down this in comments so that you can understand. So, main axis for this is left to right. Justify content arranges child elements along the main axis. Align items arranges child elements along the cross axis. Okay, I'll tell you what I mean by this. Justify content arranges child elements along the main axis. What I'm trying to say is justify content can put the children element on the main axis. By default, that value is start, which is why you see them at the start of the main axis. Okay, the main axis goes from here to here, and by default their value is start. So start is at the start of the main axis. I can actually give it a justify content of end, and it will now arrange the elements at the end of the main axis along the main axis. What I mean is the order will still be div1, div2, div3 and div4 going from left to right, but now they will be at the end of the main axis, not the start. Till now they were at the beginning of the main axis, now they will be at the end. See, they are now at the end. Make sense? Do you understand? Achha, your comments are delayed. Okay, I did not know this, but please thank you, and thank you for letting me know that. But you understand this, right? So justify content arranges items along the main axis. You can put the elements left to right. How do we decide left to right? From this. So once we have decided this, in which order that we put them, we can decide that we want to put them at the beginning or at the end. The default is beginning. We can also decide to put them at the center. So if I put center, now they will align completely in the center. They are not in the start, they are not in the end, they are in the middle. Okay. I'm using this example. This is an important example. I am also making the logical parent longer than my test one or the child elements. So what I mean by that is, let me give this a height, and let this height be 300 pixels. Now, if you'll notice, the parent is now 300 pixels and the child is only 100 pixels, which means the parent will be longer than the child. I'm sorry for making this noise. Okay. So if I go here, you will notice now the parent is longer than the child. It's 300 pixels. Okay. What align item does is, like I said here, align item arranges child elements along the cross axis. Now, if I want them to appear bang in the middle, same thing as justify content. I go here, I give it a property of align items. I call it center. Now, if you go back, you'll see they appear bang in the center in the main axis and the cross axis. This is an important thing for you guys to understand. This is one of the very tricky questions that, beginners in CSS fail to answer, which is how to center a div. This is how you center a div. You wrap it in a logical parent, whatever you want to center. You wrap it in a logical parent. In the logical parent, you give it a display of flex. That's it. You don't have to give this, because this is implied. This is by default. You give it a justify content center, you give it an align item center, and you have centered the element. As simple as that. Okay. Important thing to know here, there are other values to it as well. This can accept other values as well, not just the start, center, and end. There's also something called space, and space around, space between, space evenly. Space around simply put some space around it. So hold on, let me show you. I've done it space between deliberately, because I want to show you this. When I've put space between, it is starting right at the start of the main axis, and it is giving equal space. If I give space around, I want you to notice, if I give space around, right now at the beginning of div 1, it is not giving a lot of space. It is essentially the start of it. If I give it space, not around, space evenly, it will give even space between all of them. So if I give space evenly and save it, important thing is to save it. Now it will give even space between all elements. If I give space around will give some space at the beginning and end, and even space for the rest of the thing. This is what I mean. Save it, save it. Now if you look at it, distance between div 1 and div 2, div 2 and div 3, and div 3 and div 4 is constant, but distance between the start of the parent and div 1 and the end of div 4 and the end of the parent is not the same as distance between div 1 and div 2. Essentially, it gives just some margin, not a lot of margin. That's important to understand. You can also give it a value of stretch. And now they will simply along the main axis, right? Yeah. So essentially it will stretch along the main axis or the given axis that you give it to. Hold on. Let me go back to putting it spaced evenly. I think it will be better visualized here if I give it a stretch to the align items. See, come on, why is it not stretching? That's strange. Oh, do I need to refresh it? No. No, but important thing to see is that they've given up their initial space. I don't understand why they're not stretching. I'll come back to it later. Okay, let's give it back a justify content and align items to center. And if we now see, they are bang in the middle, right? This is a very quick introduction to Flexbox. Literally a very quick introduction to Flexbox. Like I said, Flexbox is very, very vast. I simply cannot cover it in one day. I would like you guys to do your research, come back to me. But what I've shown you right now is I've shown you enough for you to get started. And please, guys, this is really important. I want you to understand that start practicing as soon as possible, because only then will you encounter problems. And take it from me, take it from someone who is uh, generated lakhs of income for multiple big companies whose code is used by lakhs of people. The only way you learn is by facing problems, and you face problems when you start practicing. Okay, so don't be afraid of facing problems, please. If there's one thing that I want you to take away from this class, is that is to execute and debug. Those are the two things. That's what makes you an engineer. That's what makes you a problem solver. Okay, moving on. So I've used Flexbox for layout management. Building let's use this example to build a simple navigation bar. Till now we are using, or let's say I'm going to take this at the top. I'm going to rebrand this into a navigation bar. Let me do here. I'll cut it. Instead of the nav bar, should be up here. Yeah, instead of the nav bar, let me get rid of this. Now let's give it a nav. Let's make this tab into nav. Now this is semantic. Now this is semantic of navigation bar. Div1, div2, div3, div4. I'm going to use all the properties that I just used to show you how I would make a nav bar. Now nav bar usually go in this manner that you have something like an image, right? Then you have I'll show you. Let's take an example. Let's go to Excalidraw that we are already on. It doesn't really have a nav bar. Let's go where? Let's go to my favorite site, which is Twitter. Does Twitter have a nav bar? It's a left-line nav bar. No. Where do we go? Pexels. Pexels. Nav bar. If you've noticed the trend, the nav bar is on the left side. On the extreme left side, you have logo and the image of the logo, the name. Then there is an empty space. Then there is the nav items, and then there is a call to action, the join button. Also note that there is a lot of empty space at the beginning and end of the nav bar. That's not how it usually happens. It's only happening here because my screen is too big. My screen is too high resolution. Usually it is this in this manner. There is very less space at the beginning at the end. Okay, let's recreate this nav bar from here to here. So essentially what we want is we want an image and logo here. Okay, and I'm gonna explain at the end of it. I want you guys to follow along because I'm going to do all of the things that I just taught you in this flex class. Okay, so logical parent. Let me just comment this out for a minute and write down what I want. I want image, empty space, and I want nav items, and I want a image empty space nav items and call to action. Nav items will be about us, contact, and careers. Okay, those are the nav items, and this is the nav bar that I want to recreate. Okay, let's do this. Let's give it an image tag wherein we'll have our little logo. Okay, I'm still wrapping all of this up in a logical parent, which is the Flexbox. In fact, let's make it even more apparent. Instead of calling it logical parent, let's call it Flex Parent 1, because I can and I will have multiple Flex parents. So Flex Parent 1. Let's save it. Let's give it an ID of Flex Parent 1. Okay, so Flex Parent 1 will have an image, then it will have an empty space. I am still denoting this with a div essentially. Okay, and empty space and nav items, I will wrap them around in a logical block. I'll show you what I mean. And at the end of it, I have a call to action. So button, input type button. We studied about input type button at the beginning, right? CTA. This div, let me give it an ID and call it flex parent 2. So let's create another CSS block here. Let's call it flex parent 2. Let's instantly give it a display of flex. I do not need to write flex direction row because that is implied. That's the default. Okay. Now let's see what we have. Alt. Let's put the logo. Let's get rid of src set. Don't need it. And let's see what we have here on our page. We have logo and CTA. There is nothing for the div. It should not, because I've not given it any height and width. Let's change that in the div. Let's create some more logical divisions. I'm guessing now this. So now what I'm doing right now comes from experience. When you reach there, you'll do that too. So let's give it 5 and sorry, let's call it nav items, and let's make 5 of them. Okay. So the ones we want are about us, and we want contact, and we want careers. Okay, let's see how it looks. Do I have the, instead of justify content center, now I want to give it justify around. Hold on. Let's give it space around. Yeah, I want to control the spaces myself. So space around works. Space around works. Logo, about us, contact, careers, CT at the end of the page. Not space around. Space around, space between. Let's give it a justify content of space between. Now logo is at the left side, CT is at the right side, and this is right in the middle. Okay, that's as expected. Now what do? We give it a width. Let's first give it a width. So give width to all the nav items. Nav items class, let's target it here. Class can be targeted by dot, and it's called nav items. Let's give it a width of 20 pixels. 20 pixels. Let's see how it is looking. Interesting. Let's get rid of justify content. Guys, I want you to understand. Back end relation of yesterday, love of God, Hebron. Uh, it's actually not at all required. It was a very complex project that I was making. You don't need it, so please don't worry about it. Backend connection of yesterday was a different class altogether. All I did was I took the uh, you know the data from the front end, sent it to the back end. How I made that back end is beyond the scope. Please do not worry about it. It's not part of this curriculum. It's actually a huge class on its own. So we'll study in that class about backend relation. Also at the same time, guys, can you please in fact, this is what I'll do. I'll keep a list of these questions. I am acknowledging that I'm reading your questions, but I will answer them towards the end of the class. Okay. So now everything is like this. Logo, about us, contact. Now let's give it a, from test one, let's take away the width and height. Let's target nav items. Let's do the width of, from 20 pixels. I'm increasing the width. Again, this is a very dirty implementation of what I'm doing. Yeah, I want it to stay in the viewport. So instead of width, let's call it flex spaces. That's actually what width is called in flex spaces. So see, final and end. Instead of flex basis, I can also give it a property of flex grow. Right. Flex grow will be better suited. Flex grow of 2. And if we give this a flex grow of 2, not this, take it away from here. What I'm doing right now is called rapid prototyping. I am writing my styles right in the browser. If and when I find the right styles, I will copy them over to the main file. So let's give it a flex grow of 2. Let's see how big this is. Yep, taking everything that there is. Now if I give this a width or a flex spaces, it will spread out as it has. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Now let me also inside it give it a justify content of, if I give it an end. Let me see how it looks if I give it end. No, not good. No good. That's strange. Okay. Oh, justify content goes on the parent, not on that. My mistake. I'm sorry. So justify content and give it an end, or let's keep it center. The other parent, let's instead of space between, can we do it space evenly? Will that help? Oh yeah, let's give it a image, a flex grow of 1, and same with CTA. Where is the CTA? Here is the CTA. Let's give it a flex grow of 1. Let's not give CTA flex grow 1. It's looking weird. Let's instead give it just simple margins. Yeah, let's give it margins. So margin on the right. I want margin on the right to be 10 pixels. 10 pixels. Okay. I want the padding to be 20 pixels. Nah. I want the padding at the top and bottom to be 2 pixels. On the left and right, I want it to be 10 pixels. So, padding top of 2 pixels, padding bottom of 2 pixels, padding left of 10 pixels, and padding right of 10 pixels. Now this looks like what we were looking at. Now let me copy all of these. Let me copy all of this styles that I've written, and let me put this in. Yeah, let me put this in the file. So this is on input type button. Let's go here. Let's make sure I don't save it, because I save it, it will get refreshed, and if it gets refreshed, everything here will vanish. So we have to be very careful about it. Flex parent, copy everything from here, go here. Where is the flex parent? One, paste it. I'm not going to save it yet. Okay. That was the flex parent. No, flex parent one. Is that everything in flex parent one? Flex parent one. Great. Just make sure that I have it properly the way it should. Okay. Now let's go to image. Image has a flex grow of one. Let's call it the logo image. Again, I'm making sure that I don't save anything. So let's give it an ID of logo image. Let's go here, target that ID with a hash logo underscore image, open and close curly braces. Let's image flex grow of one. Okay, let's simply call it flex grow one. I'm being careful not to save it. Flex parent 2, go here, copy it, go back, flex parent to open close it. It's a ID, so we have to give it a hash in the front of it. Save everything here. That's our flex parent 2. Nav items have a flex basis of 170. Let's give it a nav item. Let's give nav items a flex basis of 170. Instead of width, let's call it this 174. No, 170. Nice round number. Still being careful not to save it. And the input type button is all of this. Let's give it an ID of CTA button 1. So on the input value CTA, let's give it an ID of CTA button 1. Not button. It's not a button, it's a button. And go back here. Let's target it. Hash input underscore button underscore 1. Open close the curly braces. Copy everything. I think I've got everything. Let me save it, because the moment I save it, it will get refreshed there, and once it gets refreshed, everything goes. It's looking as expected. That is what I wanted. Does that make sense to everyone? Padding and margin will do. I'll give you a quick example of what padding and margin will do. Padding will arrange the content inside the elements. So if I give padding to this button, it will create space between button, the border of the button, and the text inside it. Okay. Margin will do. So essentially, margin is outside, padding is inside. If I give a padding, it will create space between border and inside. Inside there is text. If I give a margin, it will create distance between border and outside. So for example, for this CTA, if I give it a margin on the right of 10, it will create that space on the right, and I will show you that. So on the button, if I go here and if I give a margin on the right of 10 pixels, it will now be away from the, why is it not? It will now be away from that by 10 pixels. So let me margin right 10 pixels, 10 pixels. Ten pixels. That's what I've written, right? And put button 1. Yeah, that's what I've written. That's strange. It's working here, but it's not working when I'm copying it. Okay. Anyway, so the point that I'm trying to make is the margin is from the border to the outside, padding is from border to inside. Okay. So if I uh, keep adding more to margin right, it will keep creating space from border of the element to the right. Okay. If I keep creating a padding, so same thing, padding on the right, padding is inside, margin is outside. Padding will start creating space on the inside. You see what I mean? This is essentially what margin and padding do. Great. Move forward now. What I'll do is I'll make sure I commit all of this code. Why? Because I want you guys to go through this code again and make sense of what I've done. If you've noticed, there are two nav items here which are completely empty. You see? Are you able to notice them? These are completely empty. The idea here is that I wanted some space. I could create some space by margin and padding, but I usually don't like using margins because they mess up with the layout. So I just literally created two empty elements, put them there, did that. What does flex grow do? Flex grow allows the elements to take all of the space available. I'll show you again. It is always good to show by example. So is there a flex grow here? No. Should be a flex grow here. Let's get rid of all the flex grows and show you that how they all come back. Go to input, no flex grow here. Okay, what I'll do is I will give each of them a background color so that again you're able to see better. So for the image logo, let's give it a background color of blanched almond. For the div parents, let's give it a background color of no. How about this? And for the input, let's give it a background color of coral. This is good. Okay. So if you notice the flex parent one, if you please notice here, flex parent one has only 3 elements and that's it. The image, the div, flex parent two, and the input. Those are the only 3 elements that is in the flex parent one. The second element is it's a flex parent in itself. So I've called it flex parent two. Okay. But let's not worry about it right now. Let me tell you what grow means. If I put flex grow on only one item here. So if I put flex grow and give it a value of 1, you will see that it takes all of the available space and pushes the rest of the item towards the end of the main axis. Okay. If I want them to be of the same size, all of them to be the same size, I can do a space evenly, justify content space evenly, or I can give each and every single one of them a flex grow of similar value. So if the image is flex grow 1, I can give the flex parent 2 a flex grow of not 2 but 1, and I can give the CTA a flex grow of 1. Now, if you see, all of them, all of these individual elements are taking equal space. So essentially, I've given them an equal weight. They do not have any unit attached to it because essentially weightage does not have a unit attached to it. So what I'm saying is, jitni whatever significance logo has, I want to give the same significance to this element. I want to give the same significance to this CTA. What if I want this to be bigger? Essentially what I'm saying is, I want this to be bigger than all of them. By how much? If everything is 1, then I want this to be 2. So I go here, I give it a flex grow of 2. It will now take double the space than all of these. So this blue part is double in space than this orange part and the blanched almond part. Okay. If I want it to be triple the space, 3, 4, so on and so forth, until there is space available. What I'm trying to say is, if I make it 200, it will go here, and then it will, even if I increase the value, it will not increase in size. Why? Because there is no more space available. So I made this 2 and I went from there. What takes whole width like 100%? Any other side the logo would have spanned 200%? I don't get it what you're saying. Please be descriptive in your questions, otherwise I don't get the context of what you're saying. But anyway, this is what we want, and we have achieved this. Great. This was in fact the most important part of the class today. The rest of it are again additions to what you know already, and I will obviously go on and explain them to you. But this was the most important part of the class, which is why I took the most amount of time in this. Okay. Now I'm gonna go ahead and continue with the rest of the class. Let's give you a few examples of few new APIs included by HTML5. So, for example, the geolocation API, which is not the best of example to give you because it will require help from uh, JavaScript. But over the hell, I'll give you a representation anyway. We are rebel like that. Okay, so what geolocation API does is, earlier what it used to do was, if we had to get the location of the device that is accessing the data, we had to write a complex set of instructions, usually including a lot of JavaScript and a lot of jQuery, write a lot of complex logic to achieve that, to make that happen. It has become very simple now, very, very simple. We can simply give it a an attribute of geolocation, and we can get it from there. I'll show you what I mean. So essentially, I'll give you right now a crash course in events, in essentially JavaScript and HTML5 events. So events mean I want something to happen only in case of a certain event. That event can be click of a button, like this is a button. Whenever I click it, I want it to fetch the location. Okay, right now it does nothing because I've not given it an event. Let's change that. Let's go here and let's give it an event. Now, before we do that, how do I show you that events exist? Oh, what the hell, I need the JavaScript file anyway. Let's write a JavaScript here. Okay, again, I'm writing an embedded JavaScript script, and Yeah, just script. Let it be just script. And let's do a log of this coming from JavaScript. If I go to the console log now, we will have this is coming from JS here. Why did this go too big? Okay, now let's go inside. Is this the largest it can go? Anyway, so this is coming from JS. We have it here. Okay. On click, what I want is on click is by the way an inbuilt event, and so we can use it in our HTML. You can do an on click. And by the way, again, this is why I always say VS Code. All the events are identified by using, they start with on. So on click, on mouse enter, on mouse exit, on click through, on whatever. You just have to write on, and your IDE will suggest you all the available events. Right now, see, it has on click, on change, on can play, on blur, on abort, so on and so forth. These are on the all the events that you will ever need. Right now, I want on click. On click, I wanted to run a function. Run a function means run some logic. That logic simply is to get the uh, geolocation. Okay, and that is an inbuilt function now. So I'll just do a get location here. See, it is suggesting me on its own. Get location, run the function. No, let's. So if I do this and I go here and I click here, illegal constructor? Why illegal constructor? Hold on. Why is this an illegal constructor? Let me be a little more verbose. Get location. For the get location side of things, I go inside the script and write this function. I go in here, I write, what do I write? I write first of all, hold on, Liz. Okay, essentially you can fetch the geolocation of it. Let me and I want to display it somewhere. Now guys, what I'm trying to show you, I'm actually debating should I show you this or not, because this is outside the scope of your tasks, but it's important to visualize this. I am just telling you right now, please understand that all of this was even more complicated than this, but what we'll do is I'll just give you an example of how it does. Okay, so you don't need to know this logic that I'm writing. Please don't worry about it. I'm just showing you that now you can get location with a very few lines of code. Earlier, you had to write like so many lines of code. It was really a headache. Get location. Let's make it a function. Come on. Function get location. Doesn't take any params. And if navigator dot geolocation, if we have the geolocation, we can navigator dot geolocation dot get current position dot, not dot, it's a function, so it takes show position. Show position, show position. Else, if we don't have it, we just want to say that it's not supported. So log supported by your browser. Okay, now let's make this get current position the show position. Okay, let's make this. I have to write this outside this. Let's give a show position. Let's make function and let's simply log it out. So log lat is position.coords.lat. Coords.latitude. Should it be latitude? Should it be? I think it should be latitude. How do I spell latitude now? Latitude. Okay, and let's copy everything. Let's call it log, which is longitude. That long. Longitude. Okay. Let's go back. Let's refresh. Let's see if this works. Yeah, so see, I've clicked on it and it is asking for the location. That's a good sign. I click here and I got the lat long here. Do you see this? Do you guys see this? You don't have to follow the logic. You guys don't have to follow the logic. You just have to understand. Uh, so yeah, Momin, practice and practice some more. If you have any questions, always reach out to Let's Upgrade, or you can reach out to me on Twitter. I've given my Twitter ID many times. And in this class, you're not going to learn basic JavaScript. This class was just HTML5. Again, I know that you guys understand, a lot of you understand HTML5 already, but I have to tailor this class for absolute beginners who do not understand any of HTML5. So keeping that in mind, if I start teaching HTML5, then JavaScript and CSS as well, not everyone will be able to follow. So let's keep this class laser focused on HTML5. CSS and JavaScript will be taken up in later sessions by Let's Upgrade. Okay. And I'm telling you guys again, never ever hesitate in reaching out to me if you need my help. I'm always available on Twitter. Okay. We share a LinkedIn ID. We'll come to it. It's not important right now. You can just search for my name. It's not important right now. Again, if you want to reach me, the easiest way to reach me is through Twitter, LinkedIn. You can find all the information on Twitter. Okay, and on Twitter, I'm simply it's essentially twitter.com/Sarthak Batra. That's my name. If you do this, you will reach my ID, and you can reach me from here. Make sense? Okay, but let's please move forward. Again, Let's Upgrade is letting you guys know that you can enroll for the upcoming CSS batches. They are pretty competent people. Please enroll there. And I'm sure they'll arrange a JavaScript session soon too. Okay. Now, uh, so yeah, this is essentially, there are essentially other APIs at play. So something like a web storage, cookie storage. They are cookie storage and web storage. They allow user to save data in browser. Earlier, again, we used to have lots and lots of JavaScript to do that. Now it's very condensed. You can do that in very simple lines of code, in very less lines of code, and you don't have to worry about them as much. Okay. So, and in fact, let me go here and give you this resource. It's called HTML5 new API. This is what you search. You search HTML5 new APIs. APIs with an S because it's plural. I'm sorry, I need some water. They are also called web APIs. You go to MDN and you read about them. Not all much, not all of them. Again, like I said, so many tags, so many APIs. You will not be able to cram everything. So and which is why internet is available. You can always go to MDN and look for what you want ad hoc at the moment. 10 HTML APIs worth looking into, which is site point, high resolution API, user timing API, all of this navigation API, which we just used. Oh no, we used the geolocation API, battery status API. This is when your whatever device you have, it can fetch the battery for it. Again, this used to be a super complex thing to do with JavaScript, but it is really very simple now. Page visibility API. I would encourage you guys to go on sites like this, do your research. If you have any problem, I keep saying Let's Upgrade is always available. Take their help, reach out to them. Okay, now let's close the memes section. Though I would like you guys very much to find funny memes and send them to me. I enjoy memes. Okay. Find funny memes about tech, about HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript that we are writing, not just random memes. Okay. Uh, I want to tell you guys quickly about some new form interactions as well. I am just thinking about which ones should I tell you. One second. I have some made some notes about it, about what I want to tell you. Give me a minute, guys. I'll find my notes. Form interactions, forms is used to accept data from the user. And where are my notes about it? Yeah, I've selected a few examples for you again, just to give you guys a demonstration. And yeah, let's make a form. I think we have already made a form method get action here. And I think who asked me a question about that? I didn't understand how it was working. The form. Somebody asked me a question about it. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But anyway, so this is how you run a form. You give it a method, you give it an action. Action is where you want the form to go after you've clicked submit. I'll repeat. Action is where you want the form values to go after you've clicked the submit button. Okay. Method is how do you want to process that, data that you sent. I gave it an example on a backend that I had already made. You don't have to worry about that backend of how I made it. You just had to worry about how I sent it, not how I process it, because that again out of scope. So how I sent it is by giving it a method of get and an action of wherever your server is, wherever your backend server is. In this case here, and using labels and input types. Let me introduce one more input type to you, which is called. Do we have comments? No. Let's move forward. Onwards and upwards and forwards. Okay. Yeah. So I will give you an example of something that I've made already, and I'll show you how this works. Let's go to the form that we had made. Did I not save it? I have to remember to save it. I did save it. Refresh. Go down. See, first of all, select, and this should have a BR in between. BR is line break. And again, for the sake of clarity, I'm going to comment everything out on the top so that you don't see things that are not necessary for now, at least. So let me comment all of this out. Yeah. So what this does is I want to accept input currencies from user. For example, if you're paying for something, I want to know what currency you're using, and I've given you some preset options already. What this does is, this is an input type, normal input type. It takes a list of currencies and a name of currency. Now the data list is, this is where you're defining your currencies. Okay. And option, similar like we have in select. Option simply means that it is one of the options of the list. Okay. And the value is what you're passing along as the actual value of the currency that you want to use. This is mapped to list by this. So list currencies is mapped to the data list by the use of id currencies. So if I want an Indian rupee, I start typing IND and it will already suggest me here. If I click on it, it auto completes to Indian rupee. Why do we have this data list? Because again, let me tell you, this is doable by JavaScript, but this is how many lines of JavaScript? 135 to 143. That is 8 lines of JavaScript. Just sorry, 8 lines of HTML. Literally 8 lines of HTML, of which of in this 8 lines of HTML, the 6 lines are only the options. If we remove this is just 3 lines of HTML. Believe me when I tell you this used to take at least 20 lines, 25 lines of JavaScript code, and pure JavaScript code, not involving options or anything. So this is a new function made available by HTML5 using their enhanced form uh, elements. Okay. Similarly, we have a new one which is encryption keygen. So if I simply use an element called keygen here, it will generate a key. Not here, outside the data list. Keygen name generate key. Keygen, end of this. Refresh. Go here. Why is it not? Oh, let me give it a label. Let me give it a label so that we are able to see it. Okay, one sec. Yeah, so let me give it a label so that I'm able to identify where this is. label for keygen, and that is mapped by id. Keygen. Do we still not have it? Where is the label? Where is the label? I think keygen is not supported by my browser, so I'll move on. It's showing it in red. Uh, let's move on. Let's show you a few more. Something like a progress bar. Okay. So progress bar simply goes like this. It's just essentially a visual representation of progress that you've made in any task that you're doing over, you know, if you're computing any task, it just shows you progress. So if, for example, you want to show that you have completed 60% of your course, you show progress 60, you write it like this, you say progress 60%, and this is the actual element that makes it happen. You're saying that up to the maximum value is 100. I want to do 60 out of 100. Right now our course is at 95%. Okay, we have the progress is 95%. I've told you 95% of everything that was in the curriculum that was designed by LetsUpgrade. So if I do this, we are left with only 5%, and now we are left with less than that because we have learned progress as well. Okay, any more questions? I'll have to go back and see. In a label tag is compulsory to use for attribute. sk Rajput, it is compulsory because otherwise how will you map the label to an input tag? For attribute only tells label tag which actual tag is this label belong to. How to automate the progress bar? Mumin, Progress bar can be automated. Like if you're doing any computation, right now I'm not doing any computation. This is just static. All this website is static. What I mean by static is there is no real-time computation happening. There is no real-time calculation happening in this program, right? There are languages that make real-time calculation possible. Languages like JavaScript. Right now we're not talking about JavaScript. This is just an example of when you're using something like a JavaScript. So progress bar that you see on different websites, where for example when you download some stuff, that can now be approximated using this tag. Okay, but yes, you do need another platform, that other platform being a whole different language altogether, that language being JavaScript. Okay, okay, let's wrap this up. I will give you, so I'll tell you what's remaining. What's remaining now is I'll tell you the code organization, how I organize code for large scale projects that I make, how I like write code, what are the best practices of writing code, and how you can learn more of them and stay updated. I will give you resources. I will make sure to commit this code and give you all repo access. Okay, so that you guys can see this code by yourself, so that you can explore this code. You can simply copy this code on your computer and play with it. Okay, so these are my tasks remaining. Okay, now with that out of the way, so I by showing you these folder structures, I actually already started giving you the code format or the convention that I follow. What I do is, first of all, and this is important to know, first of all, HTML or any HTML file that you, any web project that you start needs to have an index.html. There is no rule about it. You can call it sarthak.html, that works too, but index.html is the internationally accepted standard, right? Just like rupee, the word rupee is the standard that is adopted for the currency in India. The currency in USA is called a dollar. Every country has their own currency. It is a standard. Similarly, uh, calling every web project needs to have a starting point. That starting point is called index.html. Index.html being the standard for the name of how it starts. Okay, which is why I called it index.html. As a matter of fact, if you use any server, like I'm using a live server right now which just serves code, if you're using any server, you don't have to tell it to target index.html. It will target it on its own, because again, convention. So in C, it is going, this is my localhost, it is going inside the src folder, and it does not even need to write index.html. That is assumed. Okay, and the way I arrange styles and everything is, in the root folder I write an src folder. Okay, src stands for source. Source is all the source folder contains all the extra code that I have written. Okay, so style goes inside it. The monster and pick for CFP, let me, inside the source folder we have the index.html, we have styles, and for these files I call a folder called, I create a folder inside the source folder. Let's call it static or assets. Okay, and I will pick both of them, put them inside assets. Okay, this is a clean way of presenting your project, because now my project is just one folder, that's src. In that src folder I have one starting point, which is index. Everything else is in their own folder. So styles are inside the style folder. If I create another page which is about.html, okay, and if I want styles for it, I will go inside the styles folder, I will create another file, I will call it about.css. Again, the convention is to have the name of the file and the name of the styles to be the same. Where is my about needs to be inside src. Move it. So styles, assets, and these are my pages, about and index. Every page gets a style by the same name, about.css. So for index.html, this needs to be styles by Sarthak. Instead of styles by Sarthak, it can also be index.css. I'm not doing it because all my styles will break. They're already going to break because all my assets have moved. All the relative linking will now be broken. Let's change that. Let us change that. So first of all my images will be broken. Are they broken? Yeah, see, they are broken. You cannot access the video now. Let's change that. I will go inside my index. I will search for monster. Here it is. Let me link it again. src or dot slash assets slash monster. This is me relatively linking the file again. I'll copy it. I'll go into the source for the video because the asset is the same. Dot slash simply means that look into the current folder that you have. So I'm already in the in the index. I want to look inside the same folder that I have. I do not want to go outside src. I want to remain inside src. So inside the current folder, I can represent by doing a dot slash. So dot slash inside the current folder, dot, come on, dot slash inside the current folder, you will find a folder called assets. Inside the folder called assets, you will find a file called monster.mp4. This will now work. Is it working? It is. That's nice. Now, okay, it is working. That's what was important to know. My styles would have broken too. Yeah, so let me connect my styles back. I am going to delete everything. I'm going to look in the same folder, dot slash. I'm going to go into styles. I'm going to go into styles by sarthak.css. Save it. Now the styles will appear back. They have, see, my CT and everything is now working as expected. Earlier it was broken like this. Earlier it was looking like this. I have just put it back. The CSS and everything is back. That is my way, and that is the accepted way of writing your code. In the root folder, this place is called the root folder. Root folder has an src folder. Root folder also contains all the configuration files, all the environment variables, all the testing files, and what have you that you can put here. I'm going to go look at the comments if you have any comments. Before we end this, you know what? I will do this right now before I forget. I will do this right now. So, as I've been saying, HTML5 has provided some very powerful new, very powerful new tags which did not used to exist. So earlier, if you wanted to have music, audio, or video in your program, you had to use this external program, an external platform called Flash. I don't know if you've heard the name, but Flash games. Apple used to be very big on Flash back in the early days, right? Now they have an inbuilt tag for it. Okay, it's called audio for running audio files, video for running video files. Okay, so I'll comment both of them out. I'll comment, in fact, yeah, I'll comment both of them out so I can show you how I built them from the ground up. 1 second, please wait. Comment this out. Comment this out. The way I've built it is I'm building the same thing again that I've built, and I want you to show how I built it. So open and close an audio tag. Okay, src. I'm not going to put src here. I'm going to use the internal another tag made available to us by HTML5, which is the source tag, which does the same thing as that earlier thing did. It is also a self-closing tag. So instead of doing open and close slash source, come on. Oh, come on. This is something that Emmet does, right? Emmet is going haywire. See, it's auto completing. I don't want to write audio, and when I try deleting it, it is deleting the reference above. Emmet is going crazy. Essentially, it's a self-closing tag. So instead of, hold on, let me do some trickery. I'm writing this in comments, and so instead of opening and closing a tag, which is how everything usually happens, all tags are opened and all tags are closed like this. Source tag does not. It's a single use tag. It can be closed by the end of it because we are not putting any value between it. That is the reason it's an open and close tag. Between the audio tags, we're actually putting some value. That is why we need an opening and closing tag. We're not putting any value here. We can just close it at the end. But if you're not putting any value, why do we even need it? We need it because we need to put the source of audio here, right? So I put an src here. Now I can give it the location of where I've stored the file that I want to play. The file that I want to play is in dot slash the current folder inside the assets directory. It's called monster.mp4. It is very important to also give it a type. It will still play even if you don't give a type. It will still play, but you are increasing your chances to mess it up. It's always nice to give it a type to let him know that this is what you should expect, this is what is coming, and this is what you should expect. What is coming is an audio of type mp4. Simple as that, right? Now this will not yet play. Why? Because we need to have a play button to play it. Okay, now I'll show you how will it play. Like if you want to play something, you want to click the button, the play button, the pause button, the end button, the start button. You will probably not even see it. Why? Because there is no UI associated to it. How do you get all of that? Now you can go on and target it individually, write again lot of JavaScript, or you can simply give it an attribute of controls, and that's it. This will create that UI play pause button so that you can work with it. Here it is. See, this is the UI. I click on it. You can scratch through it, scratch through the audio. You can increase and decrease the volume. This is made available by using this attribute called controls. That is as simple as that. Now I will use the same way, and I'll write down the video file as well. Okay, and yeah, this time I will not explain in detail. I will still tell you my thought process of what I'm writing and why I'm writing, but I will not explain in detail. I intend for you guys to know that on your own, and if again have any problems, reach out. So open and close the video tag. In the video tag, I don't want the src attribute here. Why? Because I'm gonna open and close a source. Not open and close, it's a self-closing tag. I'm gonna put a self-closing tag of source. I'm going to give it an attribute of src in which I'm going to give it the location of the asset that I want to use. It's present in the current folder. In the current folder, there's a folder called assets. In that assets folder, there's a file called monster.mp4. It is of type video slash mp4. I want to give it controls, and I also want now this is a video, so video needs to have a height and width. If you don't give it, it will take the native take the native height and width of the video that you are supplying, but I want to control it. So I want to give it a height of, let's say, 200. It's the pixels are assumed, you don't have to write them, and width of, let's say, 500. Let's see how this looks. Let's click here, go back, go here, and we are getting the video that we wanted to have. Great, awesome. So yeah, this is what we were intending. This is what we are intended to do. I've arranged everything in a proper format. I frequently use comments to write down my thought process, or I use comments to show tell the computer, tell the programmer, whoever programmer is going to come up next, tell them what I'm thinking about, or tell them what the function does. I'm going to remove all the comments. Comments essentially is just text that is not rendered by the browser. It is not used for any other purpose than to let the user know if you're coding it yourself, or let the next person know what code you've actually written. Okay, That's where the comments come in. uh, yeah, and again, if you want to be up to dated, keeping up with HTML5, there are a lot of newsletters available. I'll tell you the easiest way is to search for those newsletters. If you don't find them, or if you want to find them, reach out to Let's Upgrade. They will help you find those newsletters. Okay, they will help you find those resources, which are always available for everyone at all times. Please reach out to them. Please reach out to me. I will now commit this code. Like I said, I can go to commit this by simply going repo.new. It will open my GitHub and create a new repository. I can give that repository a name. I will give this name HTML5 class let's underscore upgrade. It's a public repository. The description is this repo contains the code for HTML5 class for let's upgrade. Okay, create repository and code everything. Now, if you don't know what repository is, what GitHub does, Let's Upgrade has a brilliant session that they did recently. Please go on and refer that. I will simply go here, paste it, and I will do a git add hyphen all git commit -m, adding new data to src file, and I will do a git push. Now, all of the data, all of the code that we have written till now is available here. See, src and readme. All of the code that I've written is available here. Everything from the assets to the styles to about to index, everything is available here. How do you get this? You can get this by going to this URL. This is the URL. It is github.com. Please make a note of it. github.com/sarthak1991. That's my GitHub username / HTML5 class HTML5 underscore class underscore let's underscore upgrade. That's the name that I've given the repository. If you put this in your URL, you'll reach this repository, and you can simply click on this code button and you can clone it. You can download the zip so that you get all the code. You simply click on download zip, you get all the code, and you can unzip it and use it wherever you want. And yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to tell you in this class. There is, of course, there is a lot more to it. You need to know CSS. You should know CSS. You should know JavaScript. There are sessions coming up from Let's Upgrade. I think I will see you there. Okay. So yeah, that's it for everything that we have for today, guys. Before I go, do you guys have any more questions from me? I will give this next 2-3 minutes before we close this class. If you guys have any more questions from me, please send them here. I had a lovely time teaching you all. It was really, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, if you guys have any more questions, send them to me now, or always available on twitter.com/sarthak batra. That's my name. Press enter and we reach here. You can always send me questions here. Okay. Right. I think that should be the end of this session for today then. I have told you everything that I needed to. And if you need to reach out, please reach out on Twitter. I'm going to stop presenting my screen. And I'm back. Hi, everyone. Let me just check with the Let's Upgrade team, see how this is working. Yeah, guys. So I think that's all for today. And I will Whew, right. It's all for today. I will see you guys later. Bye, guys. See ya.